is since the chapter 1 and chapter 2 is reading, that's what you should be doing right now, is reading chapter 1 and chapter 2. That's basically what we're going to cover. I'm going to go through and pick out the hot spots. You write them down in your notes or highlight them in your notebook, and that's what you're going to be responsible for on the test. The test is 20% chapter 1 and chapter 2, so write that down. If you are studying for the test, the things that I pull out of chapter 1 and chapter 2, look at your outline. The things that I pull out of those sections, that's what you're responsible for, and you're talking about 20% of the test. 80% of the test will be coming from chapter 3. Good. You're looking at your outline. That's good. That's what you're supposed to be doing. So, read chapter 1, chapter 2, and we'll get to chapter 3 probably as soon as we can, but I'll probably spend a couple of days going over chapter 1 and chapter 2, pulling out what you need. First thing is statistics. So go ahead and write down the word statistic. You got a lowercase statistic and an uppercase statistic. They have different meanings. Lowercase statistic is a parameter for the sample. Now you don't have to put parameter, you can put a variable or a letter. Usually the lowercase statistic is a regular letter or a regular variable like X or S. Okay. Now that's important when you're being presented material. Let's say you're in a boardroom meeting in the future and the quality assurance manager is going over the material and they throw up X bar. You know that is a sample mean. Pull up S. That means that is the sample standard deviation. So anytime you have a regular letter, that means you're dealing with a lowercase statistic, which means a parameter for the sample. Okay? Or a statistic for the sample, or a variable for the sample, or a letter in a formula for the sample. The sample is usually the smaller group. If I want to survey, if I want to find out about all the students at Tri-County Technical College, I might use the Anderson campus as a sample. The enrollment at Tri-County Technical College is all the campuses. The sample would be the Anderson campus. So the sample is always the smaller of the two. Why do we use a sample to predict for the population? Less of two important things in our lives. What is that? Time and money. So you use the samples to predict for the population so you don't have to go out and send out surveys to all the population. You use the sample to predict. Uppercase S statistics is basically collecting, calculating, and analyzing data. And that's two definitions. Lowercase s is a variable for the sample. Uppercase or capitalized S means the science of obtaining, calculating, and interpreting data. So unless you invented those two words, you need to write them down. Next, we'll probably be going over population and sample. I don't like these new pages. I don't like. Nope. These are a new format, so I'm trying to get. Let's do this for now. All right, let's talk about the population again. Well, if the statistic is the variable for the sample, what is the variable for the population? Well, that would be a parameter. A parameter. A parameter is the variable for the population, or the letter used in the formulas for the population. It is not usually a regular letter. It is usually a Greek letter. And highlight Greek letter because that is the difference between the two. So if you're sitting in a meeting at Bosch and you are one of the blah, blah, blah engineers, or you're one of the blah, blah, blah executives, and you're looking at a presentation done by quality assurance, and they throw up mu, which is pronounced M-E-W, mu, then you know that's the population mean. And if they throw up X bar, you know that it's the sample mean. And that way you don't sound ignorant when you ask, what does that mean? Okay? That's the whole purpose of understanding the difference between a population parameter, which is a Greek letter, and a sample statistic, lowercase statistic, which is a letter. Okay? Sigma is a O with a big loop on the top. That is your standard deviation. Okay? So when you see a Greek letter, you know it's a population parameter. You know that formula or that outcome or that number that represents the Greek letter is coming from the population. A regular letter is for the sample statistic. Inferential statistics or descriptive statistics. It is organizing and summarizing data. Think of your test grades. Okay? Let's say you go through you have 5 tests and you want to know your average for the class. You average them up, right? That's called descriptive statistics. It's when you actually obtain the data, which you obtain through your test grades, and you calculate them and you interpret them. Okay? Inferential results from a sample extended to the population and measure the reliability of the result. In other words, I can't take my grade and say, okay, I made a 72 average on these 5 tests. Everybody in the class made a blah, blah, blah. Okay? I can't do that with descriptive statistics. Inferential statistics, I can. Inferential statistics is when you do a whole lot more calculating. You throw it into a confidence interval, and then you predict with a 95% confidence level that the average age of people at Tri-County Tech, or students at Tri-County Tech, is 28. Using the data from Anderson campus. Okay? That's when you can that's the difference between the two. Descriptive is pretty basic. It's test grades. Finding out your test average. Finding out what is the average height of students or the weight of students in this classroom. That is descriptive. Inferential would be finding the age of the average age of this class right here and predicting the average age at Anderson campus, which would totally be wrong. Why? Enunciate and volume.
We're doing it on this with high school.
Good job. I'm very impressed. Your average age is probably 17 or 18. Well, that'll throw a skew into it because a lot of students after 9 o'clock are not 18 years old. Okay, especially in the afternoons. All right, so you got to think about stuff like that when you're talking about inferential. Okay, a parameter deals with the population. Remember, PPSS, parameter, population, Greek letter, sample, statistic, regular letter. So that's a good page to study. And this is kind of boring. Okay, I'm going through the reading chapters, so we're going to have a couple of days of boring. The rest of it's not going to be that boring, but because we're actually doing things, we're actually calculating and talking about what it means. This stuff is kind of boring, so just bear with me for the next couple of days. Qualitative versus quantitative. Write down quality, not quantity. Write that down. That's a famous saying. What does that mean? Quality, not quantity.
I don't know how really good work done by a lot of it.
Exactly. My mother makes the best chicken salad in the world. I don't care who you compare it to. It's the best chicken salad in the world. All right. If I take my mother's recipe for chicken salad and I make 5 or 6 batches of it and hand it out to my friends, it will be quality. But if I start mass producing it and putting it in these little plastic things like Ruth's nasty stuff, that nasty stuff they call chicken salad, which is more like a chicken paste, all right? If I start doing that, I'm going to start wanting to cut what? Cut corners in making the chicken salad. And I'm gonna say, well, we don't need to make the chicken as chunky. Let's kind of cut it up a little bit more. And then it starts getting finer, and then and the quality goes what? Down, but the quantity goes up. All right, so that's a little bit of the economics. But in this definition, qualitative is basically quality. Hair color, eye color. What about your social security number? Social security number is qualitative. Why? Because it doesn't have any what? Numerical meaning. 251, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't mean anything. It is basically a name. All right? So I could do the same thing with how many people's name starts with B. How many people's name starts with C. And so on. Same thing as a name. What about quantitative data? Quantitative data has something to do with a numerical number. That means something. Average age in the classroom. That is quantitative. As well as height, weight, all that good stuff. But if I go through and say how many blondes, I wouldn't even touch that. How many people have blue eyes? How many people have brown eyes? How many people have green eyes? How many people have hazel eyes? That would be easier than finding out how many of y'all are blonde, brunette, and redhead. It'd be easier just to look at your eyes. All right? Fact, how much of the population of the world has green eyes?
5%.
2%. 2% of the population of the world has green eyes. So if you're green-eyed, then, I mean really green-eyed, not hazel with a little bit of, I mean really green. Like dang old green, like that. If you have green eyes, then you are pretty much 2% of the population of the world. Of course, some of us are based with the majority. What's the majority? Brown, okay? And brown is, I don't even know like 75% or something. I don't know what it is. And then next is blue, and then next is hazel or whatever the variations are between blue and green. There's about 3 or 4. And then there's some people that have gray eyes. Have you ever seen those before? That is really different, unique. Not saying it's different. Okay, so you got qualitative data versus quantitative data. That is, make sure you write that down along with the statistic, sample, population parameter, because those are going to be on your ACT test, SAT test, your GRE test going to want to be employee at Michelin. Any standardized test is going to have that on it. Okay? Question on that? Okay, let's talk about discrete and continuous. And when I do discrete and continuous, I kind of go to the whiteboard here. Because a lot of people, can anybody tell me what discrete is? Huh? I heard,
Give me like count.
Wow, I have never had students actually answer that question before. I had 3 of y'all. I had a mumble and 2 words. Okay? So y'all actually are trying to answer it. I'm very impressed. Because usually I just get silent. Let's please have batteries. Nope, dead. Nope, dead. Come here. Take these down to the front desk and tell them that I sent you down there. I need 2 batteries. Okay? Thank you, sir. Because I can't draw, and I'll just try to draw with the handy-dandy finger, which I don't like doing because my other fingers get in the way. Well, what's wrong with where is the, oh, I know what's wrong. There we go. And I'm not, like I say, I'm not used to, okay, it's not picking up my finger at all. Not picking up anything. Oh, crap. Wait a minute. I'm going to have to wait until I get the pins. Damn Russians. Yeah, it's not.
Are you using your mouse?
No, I can't write with my mouse. It's not even use in trying. But yeah, if I could write with the mouse, that would be nice. Yeah, y'all come up here and try to write with a mouse. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it'd be all freaky looking. I'll just go ahead and talk then. The discrete data is like your rational numbers. Write down the following numbers as rational numbers. 4, 1/2, 0.33 with a line over a 3. What do all three of those have in common? They're distinct. They have a prediction. They have a pattern. What's the next number on that 0.33? 3. So what? Oh, okay. I owe her for putting batteries in the equipment. Nope. It's not working. There we go. So, basically, the discrete is basically like your rational numbers. Ooh, I like this board. It actually writes decent. And basically, you have a pattern, or you can predict the outcome. In other words, 0.33 with a line over it, you can tell me that next digit. 1/2, you can tell me that that is what? 0.5. 4 is what? 4. You can add a couple more there. You can say 4 over 2 is 2. If you can tell me what it is, and you can put it on a number line, then it is rational and it is discrete. The key word with discrete, no yawning in class, is count. Eggs. Is eggs discrete or continuous? Discrete, because what do you do with eggs besides eat them? You count them, all right? The number of cars in the parking lot, discrete. The opposite of discrete is continuous, which the opposite of rational is what? What did I tell y'all about yawning in class? Can't do it. Did I tell y'all about the CPT teacher that threw you out of class if you yawn more than 3 times? She got fired. But she wasn't as dumb. She wasn't as dumb as the red solo cup history teacher. 8 o'clock in the morning, red solo cup. 10 o'clock, filled it back up. 12 o'clock, filled it back up. About 2 o'clock, couldn't talk, slurring the words. Yeah, he did that for about 3 weeks, and he was fired. I would do it for 5 seconds. I bring a bottle of liquor in my truck, and I'll get reported. I don't even have to drink it. But anyway, some people just have all the luck. They can do it for 3 weeks, and nobody will say a word. I take 8 students to a Mexican restaurant, pay for the food, and I get a phone call from my department head. Anyway. Continuous is irrational. I'll tell you another dumb one. And I'll just say this, and I'm not gonna say we had a dumb Spanish teacher too. He didn't understand if you're gonna do something illegal or bad or something that'll get you fired in your office, you need to lock the door. And that's all I'm gonna say. We've had some DAs up here, let me tell you. We had one guy, this is a speech teacher. Now speech, okay, everybody with me? Speech. He decides to show a soft porn movie. Okay, can anybody give me the correlation between making a speech and showing soft porn in class?
Being confident in yourself.
Yeah, maybe. I never thought about that. There's been some dummies. Let me tell you, the last 20 years, there has been some DA teachers up here. Let me tell you. I may not be the sharpest knife in the drawer, but let me tell you, if I'm going to do something illegal, I'm not going to leave the door open or unlocked. Okay, anyway. I think it would be best if you're going to do something against the rules, not to do it on campus. Oh, we still got some up here, and they do stupid stuff up until the point where they just get their hands slapped. Listen, we have some weirdos up here. I'm not here. Anderson campus is pretty, except for Slender Man. Anderson campus is pretty normal, okay? I mean, we got chicken litter outside. We're pretty normal. Anybody here from Crescent? You're used to it, right? Yeah, you're used to it. I got a lot of friends in Crescent down there in Star and Island. So I was born and raised on a farm. So you ain't gonna don't talk about the chicken litter. That's your organic farming. For those of you that want organic farming, and it's not going to kill you. All right. So irrational. If rational and discrete means a pattern and you can predict, then what does irrational mean? No pattern and no what? No prediction. So I'm going to give you 3 numbers. Get your calculators out. Well, that was a bust. There's one number. I want you to put it in and hit equals. And I want you to put the square root of 2 and the square root of 7. And somebody give me the whole number for pi. 3.14. Okay, start over. 3.14. 159. 2 what?
7.
Okay, let's start over. One person, okay? 141592 65 4. Is that it?
Yeah.
All right, just tell me what that last number is.
There's no last one.
Yeah, it keeps going forever. Pi goes forever. Somebody tell me what that next number is. You don't know. Why? You see a pattern? There's no pattern. Can you locate pi on a number line? No, you cannot. Why? Because what does the numbers keep doing? They keep oscillating. You get a 4 here, you get a 2 here, next one you get a 6, next one you get a 1, next one you get a 6. So you can't locate pi on a number line. All right? How about the square root of 2? Somebody give me that number. 1.41.
421 3562.
And what's that next number? Just look at the pattern and tell me what the next number is. Okay, y'all can't do it. Oh well. How about the square root of 7? 2, is it 2.57? What is it?
2.645.
2.645. Keep going.
75.
75.
31.
31.
There's a 1 before.
I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Oh,
1.
Thank you. 1, 1.
Yes, sir.
Okay, tell me what that next number is. Find the pattern. Can't. So therefore, you can't locate these. You can't say, okay, pi is right here. You can't do it because it keeps oscillating. So therefore, it's not predictable. There's no pattern. What goes with continuous? Well, let's say that I bring a big box of measuring utensils in here. What do you mean a big box of measuring utensils? Well, I bring the slide out rulers, tape measures. I bring a cloth tape measure that comes on a reel that you reel up. I bring a yardstick. How many of you have seen carpenter rulers? The ones that fold out? Okay, some of you probably never seen them. And I give you a digital tape measure because some of y'all can't read the dadgum tape measure. All right? And I have them in a box. There's about 25 or 30 of them in a box. And I give each one, you pick which one you want, and I tell you to go outside, and I tell you to measure Y'all can turn around. Y'all see the base of that? Y'all see the base of that light pole over there, that cement base over there, that concrete base? Y'all see it? If you can, just visualize it. All right? And I tell every one of you to go outside and measure the height of that concrete base. How many measurements will I get? There's 26 people in here. I'll get 26 different measurements. What do you mean? Well, some of y'all that can't read the tape measure will go out there and measure and say, okay, 3 and 7 marks, 3 foot. Okay, several of y'all will say 3 foot. And then several of y'all will get it to like the millimeter. Okay, some of y'all will get it right down to the, and you'll say 3 and 3/16. And then some of y'all will have a digital pen tape measure, and you'll say 3.012 inches. And then some of y'all will say, well, he said measure concrete. So some of y'all will go out there and dig until you get to the bottom of the concrete. And it'll be 3.1 inches, or 3 inches, 3 feet 1 inches. In other words, whenever you are not counting, but what am I doing? I am measuring. I'm just going to say measure because I always forget if I need to drop the E or not. Measure. If you measure something, it is continuous. Because what? Every one will give me a different what? Reading. Okay? I'm going to pick on some of you females. All right? How many of you just don't understand your doctor's scales at the doctor's office? Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? When you go to the doctor's office, it weighs more than when your home scale. Guys, they don't care, okay? But I got a friend. I got one. And she goes to the doctor's office. She said, don't you weigh me on that scale. And the nurse will go, why? Because that scale is not right. We're going with my scale at home. Why? Because the scale at home is turned back a little bit. Or it reads in the morning instead of reading in the afternoon. Okay? The scales are pretty much the same. But, of course, when you go to the doctor, the scale is always what? Reading more. It's broke. Yes. Why? 2 different measurements. When you're measuring weight, volume, area, height, anything measured in inches, milligrams, meters, whatever, distance, anything measured, it's going to be continuous. You with me? That's the 2 definitions. Now, I spend a lot of time on that because some of you will still screw it up. Okay? But, you know, it's hard to mess it up after you at least compare the 2. With one, you measure. The other, you what? Count. There's no there's no difference. I mean, there's no mixture of the 2. It's either black or white, true or false, count or measure. Capiche? And this stupid thing is not doing what it's supposed to. It's not measuring. Everything I just wrote on the board is not recorded. It's not reading like it's supposed to. Give me a second. I don't know why it's not doing it. Who knows? I'll figure it out later. All right, so that's discrete versus continuous. See, it's not doing what it's supposed to. See, it's not erasing. See, this is not even supposed to be on. That's what's supposed to be on. Now, when I hit, give me a second, I need to make sure this is working because it's not gonna do you any good. See, that's not right. That's not supposed to be on here. I need to fix it. See, this is supposed to be writing, and when I write on this board, it's supposed to be writing on the screen, and it's not doing it. So, they haven't got it hooked up correctly. Okay, well, you'll just have to listen to my voice if you listen to the video. All right. There's some more of the discrete, qualitative, quantitative. I'm not going to go through that. Go ahead and write down these levels right here of measurement. I'm not going to test you on it, but you need to know it for like standardized testing, and in the future you may go into a nominal level of measurement, ordinal, meaning order, interval, and ratio. Just make a note. You can look it up when you get home. All right. Just make sure you write those down and put FYI beside it, because you might want to pull those up, not for my test, but for other tests, especially some of you that's going to be taking the ACT. They may ask you that question. Just, when horses come in at first, second, and third, what type of measurement is that? What would that be? That would be ordinal, because it's in order. Okay? And they give you some example. A value of 0 does not mean the absence of the quantity. That's the key word there. A value of 0 means the absence of quantity. And they'll give you some examples on the next page, and we'll look at them. That's just for your information. And now they should have another, somewhere around here they have, oh, here it is. Gender, temperature, number of days during the past week that college student studied, letter grade earned. Letter grade would be what? Ordinal. Why letter grade ordinal? Because everybody don't just get whatever they feel like, okay? You get what you earn. Earned. That's a word you need to look up. Earned. Shut up, Hubert. Now be quiet. Gender. Gender is nominal. Okay? Gender is nominal. Always write that down. Gender is because it allows a categorization. Blonde, brunette, and redhead. Nominal. Blue eyes, brown eyes, green eyes, or other. Nominal. That's usually when you have a category. Temperature. Temperature is ratio, because the 0 does not lend a meaningful result. Whereas, I think, let's see, where is it? Number of days, C. That would be ratio. And temperature's interval, temperature's interval. So use those examples, and that's the one. I'm sorry, that's the one you really need to write down or make a note of. Is on page, whatever page this is. Somebody tell me what page it is. Page 10. That's the page you need to really focus on right there. It's got the examples on it. And again, it's not necessarily for your test in here. It's more for your test, standardized tests that you might take in the future. Okay? And that's 1.1. What does your outline say we go over in chapter 1? 1.1 through 1.4? 1.5. To 1.5? Okay. So let's go to 1.2. Observation studies versus denied experiment. What is an observation? How about sleep studies? What are sleep studies? You ever seen videos of watching people sleep with the night vision? Everything's green and black and white, all right? And they jump around in the bed, they sit up, they sleepwalk. That's an observation because what are you doing?
You're observing.
Observing. Just think of observation, pervin, just remember that. All right? Because if you're looking at somebody, if you're stalking somebody, if you're following somebody, that's observation. You're observing. Okay? The reason I say that is because it'll stick. Versus experiment. If every time a person moves when I'm watching them and I shock them with a cattle prod, what is that? That's an experiment. Okay, because I'm interjecting something into the observation. As soon as you interject or as soon as you interrupt the observation, it becomes an experiment. So if you watch people and you have a setting to where you can have people sleep and spend the night and eat, like if you have a hotel room or whatever, and you watch these people and you don't do anything, then that's observation. But as soon as you say, okay, I want these people to take a red pill and I want these people to take a blue pill and then eat and drink and do whatever you do normal, then it becomes an experiment because you have interjected something into it. It could be a placebo, or it could be a weight loss pill, or it could be a pill that keeps you up all night, whatever the case may be. As soon as you introduce that pill into the observation, it becomes an experiment. As soon as you put electricity in the bathtub, okay, that becomes an experiment. Not enough to kill you, just enough to shock you, Same thing with a rat in a maze. Rat in a maze is an observation, right? But what happens when you put cheese in the maze? It becomes an experiment. Okay, that's pretty simple and basic, but it'll stick with you, and hopefully you'll know the difference between the two. Okay, because that is not only my test question, one of my test questions, but it's also a standardized test question. So know the difference between an observation and an experiment. Okay? And we're going to talk about placebo too, because that's a big, big test question. So that's probably on the next couple of pages. Observation. I don't do compounding, but go ahead and write compounding down, because you're talking about something that compounding in a study when the effects of two or more explanatory variables are not separated. Therefore, any relation that may exist between an explanation variable and a response variable may be due to some other variable or variables not accounted for in the study. It's amazing how they can just make something so simple, so what? Confusing and difficult. All right? Compounding is when you actually put the pill in there, or you actually put a red pill versus a blue pill, or you say you take this pill and this group doesn't take the pill. Okay? That's when you're interjecting something into it and making an experiment. Yes, sir?
So is the design experiment when you put people into two groups?
Yeah.
Or is there's compounding?
Yep.
When you put them into two groups? So what's the difference between design experiment and compound?
Compounding is when you're interjecting something into it. All right? The other at the top, what was it called? Correct? Design. That's when you take the groups and put them in two same environments. All right? You're taking the two. So a design pretty much can be an observation. It can be an observation. But as soon as you interject something into it, that's when the compounding starts. Okay? Again, not big. Observation experiment is what I use. I don't use compounding on my test, but you might see it in a homework question or whatever. I don't do that. I'm looking for a census. I saw a word that usually is that word right there, retrospective. You might want to write that down. You usually see that in a box. I don't know why it's not in a box. It might be later. Retrospective. Retrospective is when you use data that has already been what? observed and calculated and interpreted, okay, or collected. Can you go out and say, what is the, can you tell me what the drunk driving rate in Anderson, South Carolina is? No. What would you have to do? You'd have to go look at the records. You'd have to pull it up. You'd have to look and see how many people were caught drunk driving last year or whatever the case may be. That's retrospective. Always remember, retro means in the past, records in the past. It's probably going to be in a box somewhere later. Census, that's the SAT question. Make sure you know what a census is. That's kind of, unless you haven't lived in the United States for the past 20 years, everybody knows what a census is because when the census is going on, that's all the news talks about. The census is going on. The census is going on. Census is when you go and you ask somebody, how many people are in the house? 4. How old are your children? 12 and 16. What income bracket are you in? Blah, 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 blah. How many dogs do you have? How many cats do you have? Do you have birds in your house? Just crazy stuff that they ask. I'm not going to go there. Hubert, don't go there. Just keep going. Yes, I will. There was in the news here lately. Some of you might have witnessed. There's been a lot of controversy over one of the questions about the census. And I'm not even going there because I think it's ridiculous. So the whole purpose of a census is to gain what? Information. Simple random sample. Now you can write the definition down, but I'm not going to go over it yet. Simple random sample. If I give everybody a red pen, not a red crayon and a red pen, but a red pen, and I tell everybody to print their name, first name, middle initial, and last name, on a Post-it that I give you, a yellow Post-it, all right? And then I tell you to fold it in half, and I pass around a punch bowl or a fish bowl or a hat, and you put it in there. That is a random sample, okay? Why? What is the key word to a random sample? Everybody has the same what? Chance of being picked. Everybody has the same chance of being picked. That is the key words for a random sample. Well, what if one person says, well, I don't want to use a red pen, I want to use a black pen, and I'm going to fold mine up in quarters. Is it a random sample then? No, it is affected. Why is it affected? Because the person picking the name, will they be influenced by that when it's folded differently? Yes. Okay. As soon as influence is in, and what they're trying to get you to realize here with the observation versus experiment and with the random sample here, they're trying to get you to realize that when you're doing surveys or you're doing collection of data, you have to be right down the what? Middle. You can't be biased at all. Okay? And that's what happens to a lot of our... Got to be careful here because somebody will bitch. Entities/outlets. Okay? They take some of these polls or they take some of these surveys and they try to put what into it? Bias. And I don't know what your you watch the news or you watch, whatever. There's a big talk about that right now. And I will tell you this, I am 51 years old, and I have seen tremendous bias in the last 30 years. Tremendous. Just me, personally, in some of our news outlets. Very, very much so. It used to be the days of Walter Cronkite, I think that's the way his name said it. When I was a kid, he was on, and it was news. It was news. He reported the news. He said, people got killed today and da-da-da-da-da. They were shot in the head, da-da-da-da-da. There was a flood here, da-da-da-da-da. These people died. That's not the news we have today. The news we have today is editorial news. And editorial means what? Opinion. And a lot of our news is and I'm not saying either way. I'm just saying it's not real news. It's the news that was in the 70s and 80s. That was news. A report to news, whether you like it or not. These people died. These people had a car wreck. This person was elected president. Da 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 da. It was just news reported. Now it's not that way. Now it's news, but this, however, and it's not really news anymore. Now, why do I bring that up? Because you will see bias in some of your magazines. You will see bias in some of your newspapers. Bias of what? Well, if you see something in there that's got any type of statistics to it, you might see a bias. How do you know if it's bias? You always look at the margin of error and N. What is N? N is how many people were polled. Okay? If you look down and the margin of error is 8%, then just take that poll and crumple it up and throw it in the trash can because it ain't worth anything. If you see N less than 500 and it's a national poll, throw it away. Because if you're going to do a national poll and we've got over 300 million people or billion people, whatever, I thought it was 300 million or something like that in the United States, you got to do more than 400 people. Okay? And that's how you can tell if something is biased. What happened to mine?
It's been bugging me.
It went to 2 numbers and then it went.
Yeah, it was at like a 10.
It started drawing little purple dots.
So it's still doing what it was doing the other day.
No, not the other day. This
Okay.
was something else.
This is new.
I never saw purple dots.
Huh?
There were little purple dots. There's a little purple thing on like that.
So what's in that cheese and that drink you're drinking?
That's a good one.
Got some mushrooms in there? All right, so random sample is everybody has the same amount to be picked. What they're getting ready to show you is the word bias, and that's what we're getting ready to talk about after we talk about sampling probably. What kind of samples? All right, simple random sample, we talked about that, and then there's going to be a systematic random sample if they hopefully bring it up. Okay, I guess they're not going to talk about systematic. Okay, that's 1.3. They must going to talk about it in 1.4, so let's go to 1.4. Other effective samplings, okay. Stratified sample, separating the population into non-overlapping groups. What's a good example of this? Well, if I want to find out information, blah, 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 I'll go to a voting precinct. You had to put politics in it. No. Why would I go to a voting precinct if I wanted information on smokers? Or if I wanted information on females versus males? Why would I go to a voting precinct? Because you're not going to have overlapping what? People. You're either going to have Republican, Democrat, or other. They're not going to overlap. You see what I'm saying? They believe one way, these believe this way, and these believe this way. You can break it up into 5 groups. What is it? Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian, dang old tree hugger, I don't know what it's called, and the communist, all right? I don't know. They've got a bunch of people right now that won't free everything. That's communist. That's a socialistic communist. It don't work. Go down to Venezuela where they eat their dogs now because they. But the bus driver that's president, he lives in a mansion. Ain't that nice? The president lives in a mansion and everybody's killing their dogs and eating zebras. Yeah, socialism really works. Anyway, so you could break it up into how many? A lot of people don't even know what I'm talking about when I talk about Venezuela. You need to watch the news, people. All right, 6. I can break it up into 6. Will any of these people be overlapping in their beliefs? Pretty much not. So I can ask them, are you a smoker? Blah, blah, blah. Are you, do you work? Blah, blah, blah. I can ask them anything that's non-political. But it's stratified because they are already broken up into what? 6 groups. Is this a stratified setting? Yes. Male versus what? Female. Stratified. And last time I checked, there was only 2 genders. Don't even get me started on that. And sorry, buttercups. Systematic. This is probably your best random sample beside random sample. What is systematic? Systematic is basically, if I go out to the parking lot, I'm about ready to quit. There. Systematic is right there. I don't know why it wouldn't. There we go. Obtained by selecting every nth individual. Okay? Let's say that I don't want to give every one of you a survey because it just take too long and y'all screw it up. So I'm on every third person I'm going to give a survey. 1, 2, 3, I'm going to give her a survey. 1, 2, 3, I'm going to give him a survey. 1, 2, 3, I'm going to give her a survey. 1, 2, 3, I'm going to give him a survey. Every third person I'm going to give a survey. Now, is that okay? Yes. If you stay what? Consistent. You can't say, well, I don't like her opinion. I'm going to get his. I'm going to skip one because I don't like her opinion. You can't do that. All right? It's kind of like if you commit with the systematic. You don't say, well, that person is blah, 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 and that person won't give me the right answer, so I'm going to skip that person. You can't do that. All right? You have to be down the middle. And that's what we're leading up to. We're leading up to the bias. So I didn't write the book, okay? So if you're complaining about me talking about bias, I'm sorry, the book is doing it. I'm not doing it. It's leading up to it. I got a complaint one time. Believe me, I got a complaint. My department head said, you talk about too much about bias. Well, I'm leading up to it. The book does it. I'm not doing it. Read the book. You're the department head. Read the book. Anyway, people are going to bitch no matter what. A cluster sample is obtained by selecting all individuals with a randomly selected collection of groups or individuals. That's a cluster sample. You could break up a city into, you could actually break up a county into its precincts. That would be a cluster. All precincts in Anderson County, all voting precincts. Okay. The reason, again, I use voting precincts is not because it's political. I use it because it's already stratified. It's already broken up. Now, if you want to go in and break up, let's see, I could come in here and say, okay, well, I'm not going to break you up into Republican and Democrat because some of you don't know it. So I'm going to break y'all up into age groups. All right. Then I am breaking you up into a stratified group. I'm actually having to go through and do that. Okay. What's easier? Actually going through and doing it, or using one that's already done? Using one that's already done. And that's why I use voting precincts. You could say a group setting would be, let's say you live in a subdivision, and that subdivision has 8 roads in it. You could do each road as a cluster. Okay? Because that would be a cluster. You're breaking it up into clusters versus stratifies when you're breaking it up into groups. See what I'm saying? They're clusters. They live right there together. Versus a stratified group, the people at the voting precinct, they don't live near each other, but they believe in this group, they believe in this group, and they believe in this group. So stratified would be group, where cluster would be like on the same road or in the same neighborhood or, that kind of thing. One is a little bit more diversified than the other. The other is cluster. Okay? Like I said, this part is boring going over this stuff. Convenient sample. Let's say I work at a radio station that doesn't play anything but 80s rock music. The best rock. Okay? Besides the 60s, the best rock. I'd say 60s was the best, and then there was the 80s. The 90s and the 2000s pretty much sucked as far as music goes. I'm sorry, but it did. And right now, My son listens to people that sing through a machine that's called a, what is it called?
Auto-tune.
Yeah. Define talent. That's not talent. If you have to sing through an auto-tuner, you're not talented.
What if it's talent because they can make it sound good?
You sound like my son. You sound like my son. Be quiet.
No, I don't listen.
I know you don't. I know what you're saying. My son does the same thing, and I said, it sucks. You shouldn't listen to it because it's warping your brain. That's what I tell him. But he's at DSS now, so it doesn't matter. That's a joke. That's a joke, okay? Something about the cake party with an 11-year-old. I don't know. Anyway, convenience sample is you work at a rock station, and some people are just now getting that. All right, you work at a rock station, and you say, I'm going to take a poll, and I'm going to get on the air, and I'm going to say, I need everybody to call in right now and tell me what kind of music you like. Okay, what's wrong with that?
They all like 80s rock.
Why? Because they're listening to me and I'm DJing on 80s rock. That's a convenient sample. Convenient sample, as you can tell, is not your best bet. Okay? Okay, here's another example. Let's go to the gym. Let's go to the gym and I'm going to survey how many people smoke at the gym. Now, there are some people, listen, I'm not talking about social smoking, okay? I'm talking about eating cigarettes, okay? At least 2 packs a day, 2 packs or more a day, eating them. They cough and they sound like their lungs coming through their, okay, ugh. Anyway, there's only a few things in the world that gross me out, and that's one thing that grosses me out. That and old food. I can take blood, I can take guts, I can take all that. You put a plate of old food, or, my ex-wife used to be like this. The whole refrigerator would be like old food and Tupperware things, like green stuff in it. And I would be like, Anyway, the whole point is some people are different. Some people can't stand the word moist. Okay? There's some, I don't say that! Okay? The whole point is, if you go to the gym, what do people usually go to the gym, except for the social smokers and the 5 or 6 people that smoke like freight train that go to the gym, which that don't make any sense to me. What do most people, 80% of the people that go to a gym, what are they conscious about?
Their health.
Their health. So therefore, they're probably not going to be smoking 5 packs of Marlboro Reds a day. Okay? So that would be a convenient sample because you go to the gym every day, but would it be accurate? No. Okay. So think about convenient sample. Think of it as, yeah, it's convenient, but you get what you pay for. Usually the data that you get through a convenient sample is not going to be good data. Okay? We're going to talk about sample sizes later. I'm not going to talk about that right now. And there's examples of sampling right there. I'm not going to go through that. You can look at it. And does it say we need to go through 1.5 too? Okay, 1.5. Oh my gosh, look at there. Bias. It's a miracle. Write it down. It's when you basically are leaning toward one side because of your own personal what?
Beliefs.
Now I'm going to tell you a story, and it's politics, but it's hard to talk about statistics and not talk about politics. Why? Because politics is poll driven. I had students tell me that I talked too much about politics during the presidential election in 2016.
Wait, what?
Tell me how many, did anybody have probability of statistics at high school in 2016? Anybody? Well, if you did, I doubt very seriously that your teacher sat there and did not talk about politics at all, especially with all the polls that are on TV during a presidential election. I don't understand that. Because I mention a poll, now if I say, stuff like some of the Hollywood people say, if you vote for this person, you're stupid, then yeah, you got a right to complain because that is a pet peeve of mine. If you do your research and you support somebody, more power to you.
That's what this country is all about. But when you start telling somebody who they should vote for, that's when I don't like that. Because that's not what this country is about. So I'm very anti telling you who to vote for. All right? And I never do that in my class. But I do talk about politics, especially during a presidential election. Yes, I'm going to talk about politics. I don't care who's running, Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse. I don't care. But I'm going to talk about politics because it's poll driven. Yes?
I kind of have a question about
No.
politics and statistics.
Yeah.
Like, what's the difference between telling someone to vote for somebody and getting somebody to endorse you? Aren't they telling you?
Endorsing is saying this person thinks like I do. That's what endorsing is.
When you endorse somebody, you're not telling people to vote.
No, you're not. You're saying this person aligns with me. When I say you shouldn't vote for John Smith because of this or that or this and you're stupid, that's not right. That's not right at all. And I'm sorry, I don't care if you're not a convicted felon, if you're a citizen of the United States, if you are, 35 or 45, 42? I'm what? 35. You have every right in the world to run for president of the United States. Just because people don't like you does not mean you can't run for president of the United States. And I really resent people saying, oh, you can't vote for that person because you're stupid. And there's people out there that watch the news, watch TV, you'll see it. Anyway, bias is when you are affected. Now, the example I'm going to give you, and then I'll shut up for today, is the third debate during the Republican nomination. I'm not talking about Republican Democrat, I'm talking about Republican, so I'm not being biased one way or the other because these are all Republicans. How many Republicans was in the 2016 presidential election? Anybody know? 18. There was 18. Anywhere from, some of them I didn't even know, okay? And some of you do know. Well, the one that was supposed to be winning was not. Anybody know who that was? Mitt Romney was not even in the...
Was it the old guy?
No.
Starts with the G.
The old guy. Wasn't it the old guy? Bush. Okay, Jeb Bush was supposed to win it like Clinton was supposed to win it, okay? Jeb Bush, it was supposed to be Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton. That's what it was supposed to be. That's what the media wanted, okay? But it didn't happen. By the second debate, Jeb Bush the media caught on to this and said, oh my God, Jeb Bush is not going to win the nomination. We got to do something, okay? So the third debate was coming up. And out of nowhere, this poll came out. This poll came from nowhere. All right? And it said, and what they were trying to do, they were trying to find another person to take Jeb Bush's place so Trump would not win. Because by then, Trump was 22, 26%. He was in that area, and all the other ones was like 1%. All right? It wasn't good. So they said, we got to find a racehorse. So they picked who? Y'all said it. Cruz. They picked Cruz because he's from Texas. He's a Republican. We're going to get behind Cruz. The poll came out. And when the poll came out, it said that 75% of those people polled was going to vote for Cruz. And it was like, what? Because all the polls had been saying 26%, 28%, and then the rest of them 5%, 7%, but all of it was Trump, 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 Trump. And they came out and it said, and you had to look at the bottom of the poll. N equals 100. So this was a big poll, and how many people did they survey? 100. The margin of error was, anybody want to take a guess what the margin of error was?
9%.
No, 8%. Anything above 3% is worthless. Okay? So what was this poll? What was this poll's purpose? To get people to start thinking about Cruz as it was a hit job, is what it was. And it would come out, the Friday before, okay, okay, y'all gonna get mad at me, but I said I was gonna shut up, but that does not mean pack up and be rude. What time's class in? I'm sorry, what? 9:25 or 9:35? 9:25. It's only 9:17. Okay, this ain't high school. I ought to tell you to get your books out. We're going to write down several more things. What I ought to do, after about the fifth or sixth person, I get irritated. Okay. What they were trying to do is it's called a suppressive poll. And this is statistical. This ain't Hubert. This is called a suppressive poll. A suppressive poll is meant to be put out there to influence the way people think. Now, it is not something I made up. It is something that is in statistics. It's called a suppressive poll, and it's used to influence people. Is that biased or not?
Yes.
It's very biased, and it happens, and you will see it. I don't care what side you're on, you will see it. Okay? That is bias. That's when people are using statistics to influence somebody in the way they're thinking. I'm against trying to put your thinking on somebody else. Okay, I'm against that, and that is not good. Okay, so even when you start off with a survey, you don't start off a survey, you don't smoke nasty cigarettes, do you? Do you use tobacco products? Which question are you going to use? You're going to use, do you use tobacco products? You're not leading. You don't lead, you don't convict, and you don't judge. When you do a survey, when you do the tabulating, when you do the interpretation, you don't do that. That's not right. And when you're presenting this, like if you're presented a poll, the first thing you do before you even look at it is look at two things. N, and you look at the margin of error. And if they are not up to snuff, you don't even look at the poll. If N is, well, you got to put N, if you're talking about a national poll of 300 million people plus, N is equal to 100? Really? N needs to be at least 10,000. Really? Don't you think? If you're talking about over 300 million people. So, and I challenge you, when you looking through your papers or your magazines or whatever, look at some of these polls. And we're gonna go over some in here that are made up. They're made up, but they're graphs and things like this, to where it leads the reader. And sometimes it's intentional, and sometimes it's a person in graphics making up a graph that has no math background. Okay? And they make a picture of a barrel of OIL and another picture that's smaller, and they don't realize that it's not right. Okay? There's intentional, and then there's unintentional. So, and we're going to leave off at bias. It's in the book. I didn't bring that up. The book did. Okay. So, any questions? Now you can pack up. Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to pass this around. You put the date on it and send it around. And anybody got any questions on anything so far? Okay, what is everybody responsible for tonight? Homework. 1.1 through 1.5. You don't have to get through 1.5 because I haven't finished 1.5. But if you should at least get to 1.4. Is the homework assigned? Is it up where you can see it?
Yes.
Okay. All right, y'all have a good weekend, and I'll see y'all whenever I see y'all. Monday? Yeah, Monday.
It's Wednesday.
What's today?
Labor Day is Monday, Labor Day.
Oh, we don't come to school Monday?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sounds good to me.
My pencil's
Not.